All right, here we go.
Well, Jason, we appreciate you coming in. We got 30 minutes, which is great, but if you want to take just 2-3 minutes, just kind of introduce yourself to us and to Craig and Mark. If you've not spoken to them, just a little bit of your background, just a little brief bio history.
Sure. So I am originally from Montgomery, Alabama, and went to the University of Georgia for my undergrad. Came to Tennessee in 2009 when I went to Vanderbilt for law school. I met my wife 3 or 4 days before the start of my classes, my third year, and decided I didn't want to leave. So I have been living in Middle Tennessee ever since. I've done a lot of different things, but the big thing that appealed to me about this position was the call to government service and public service. So as I mentioned, I'm from Montgomery, grew up figuratively in the Capitol, the shadow of the Capitol, and was involved like youth legislature and judicial, the kind of mock trial program for high school students. And then after college, I worked for the U.S. Department of Labor, worked for Sonny Perdue, who was then the governor of Georgia. Spent time at the Attorney General's office, with the Beacon Center, and I kind of saw this role as an opportunity to continue in that public service realm. It was something that was, civic duty and civic, public service was something that has kind of been ingrained in me by my family when I was growing up, and so this is, an opportunity to continue that.
Let me start.
Yeah, good stuff.
We're going to just kind of shoot questions at you, if
Okay.
you don't mind.
Sure.
Are you aware and prepared for meetings outside regular business hours? Do you plan on making most of these meetings yourself or sending a representative?
So I'm aware of what that would, that they exist and that would be required. I don't know the extent of them, and so I don't feel like I could say, confidently right now, oh yes, I'd attend most of them, or I'd send someone for them. It would really depend on the circumstance, the timing, the frequency of a given meeting, and frankly the importance of a given meeting. How important it is that I be there versus if there's an assistant attorney. I know that there's currently an assistant county attorney, but I also know that he is going to be leaving, and so I assume that that the plan would still be to have more than one attorney, and to the extent there's also other staff, whether it's a paralegal or a legal assistant, if it's something that someone from the legal department needs to be there, but not necessarily a lawyer. But like I said, just depending on the circumstance. And obviously, there are certain things, commission meetings, right? That's something that, yes, I would. That would be something that I would attend. I imagine I would attend just about everyone. Obviously with certain scheduling, things that may come up. But I think that would be something that I would be attend, just about every one of those.
And there are, meetings every Monday that, start around 5 p.m. and can go to 9 or 10 on Mondays on average. It's kind of the average meeting night. Trying to get that under control a bit. But that's kind of, and then also different governmental boards and meetings during the week or, outside. I'm not sure how many are outside, but I know there's quite a few. So making aware of that.
Sure.
Now, and you live currently in Brentwood, correct?
Yes, sir.
Now, would you I'm going to ask your intent to move up here should we get the job, or commute, try to do the long distance, or what are your thoughts on that?
So certainly commute to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
We're in the middle of the school year. It's not something that we've got to if my two older kids are in first grade and kindergarten, and they go to the local public school, and then my youngest is 3, and he we've got a great preschool for him, and so I don't think that's something that we want to affect this school year, but it is something that my wife and I have discussed about if I did get this job, about relocating. Mm-hmm. And we'd figure what would be best. Right now my wife works remotely exclusively, and so she can essentially be anywhere. She does work with a lot of schools in Nashville, and so we would want proximity to Nashville, but obviously we're not that it's not like this job is in Memphis or something. Mm-hmm. So but like I said, it's something we've certainly discussed that, and if it was the right thing, we would look to move and figure that out.
I'm going to skip ahead to question 4 this time, if that's okay. What experience do you have with governmental meeting procedures and protocols?
So I have both in when I worked in Georgia for Governor Perdue, as well as like with the Beacon Center, either attended or watched a lot of legislative committee hearings. And so with the Georgia legislature, the Tennessee legislature, in terms of like a the county commission or a city council, not a lot, to be honest. I have a very high level understanding of like Robert's Rule of Order, but it's something that I've seen enough of, like way at least committee hearings, legislative committee hearings are run, that I think that gives me a good sense of what would happen on a given basis. And I have watched for a variety of reasons different committee hearings for different like council, like Metro Council, for instance. Like when I was at the Beacon Center, I looked at watched some of those, but not a lot of experience with that.
Have you watched any of our commission meetings?
I haven't.
Oh, okay.
Not yet.
Oh, okay.
It's the one that I meant to watch and just hadn't had a chance to was the one about when you amended the charter and
The preamble.
yeah, the preamble. That's one that I especially when I read about it, I was like, oh, that looks very interesting, and then I just haven't had a chance to watch it yet.
Okay.
And our adopted procedures don't follow completely Robert's Rules of
Right.
Order, but they're very similar.
Oh, I will go to question number 3. No? Where are we?
No,
Yeah, I have it. I have it. Yes, y'all's 3. What is your opinion on the county mayor's or county commission's authority to enact or enforce mask mandates in public?
So I looked at this because this is something that Commissioner Mansfield asked me, and so I looked more into it. And my understanding, as it stands now, is that the county as a whole cannot contradict something that the governor has done. So if the governor ordered a mask mandate, then the county couldn't come in and say, well, no, that doesn't apply here. Likewise, if the governor prohibited a mask mandate, then the county couldn't come in and say, well, we don't care that you prohibited it. We are going to implement it ourselves, for us. Otherwise, there's been the legislature passed several laws with regards to public health in the last couple of years, and what counties can do, what they cannot do, and I looked at some of the Attorney General opinions that have come out that I'm not sure reflect the current state of law, given like the extraordinary session that was passed then. But my general understanding is I think that they probably could if there was something, if it was tied into a clear like public health connection. I do think that it would have to be very well targeted, and you would need a lot of science behind it to back that up. I think it would be better if it came from the commission rather than the mayor, for it to be legislatively done. That's not to say that I'm going to be to say that the mayor categorically the mayor couldn't do it, but I think it would be on stronger grounding if it was passed legislatively. But I don't think that there's a blanket prohibition on it, but I also don't think there's a blanket, oh, well, if the mayor just passes issues an executive order requiring everyone to wear a mask in public, that would automatically be okay either. I think it very, very much depends on the circumstances and of what's going on. I think right now, given the current conditions, I don't think that would fly. If we go back to March or April of 2020, especially given at that point the unknown, all the unknown factors that were at play, I think it's more defensible. But thankfully in Tennessee, we didn't go nearly as far on the COVID measures as, a lot of other states did. And there was a lot of litigation, in those other states, and a lot of, states with, Democratic governors and, Democratic legislatures that, passed some more of the draconian measures. There's a lot of case law that, courts ultimately say, well, no, you overstepped your authority on this or that. And so I think that they're, in the event that, heaven forbid, there was some other kind of pandemic that came up, I think we'd have a lot more grounding to work from to figure out, okay, what's required, what's allowed, what's prohibited, to figure out, if there were going to be some sort of policy on that, how can we do this in a way that is legally defensible? And at the very least, that, and then obviously it would be my job to advise on that. Obviously, it would be the job of the commission and the county mayor to follow it, or say, well, we don't like that, and so we're going to do our own thing. But I'd have a lot of grounding to do that I could say, okay, based on not just case law in Tennessee, but in experiences in other states, this is what was allowed. These are things that were allowed. These are things that were not. Here's why they were allowed or weren't, or said to be unconstitutional. And let's try to craft that policy that we think can actually be sustained, so that we have both like what's good policy and also what is like constitutionally defensible.
I'm going to be a little easier. Question number 2. What is your primary incentive to begin a new career path by becoming the Sumner County Law Director?
So I alluded this in my introduction, but it's government service and public service is something that I think is very important to me. Montgomery is it's bigger now. I think maybe the second largest city in Alabama, but here I think would be 4th at best, and then I'm not even sure that it was bigger than like Chattanooga. It's probably smaller than Chattanooga, and it was even smaller when I was growing up. And my grandfather lived in Montgomery his whole life, and he was a civic leader, and I saw the respect that he had. I mean, when I was 4 or 5 or something, I told him I wanted to meet the mayor, the long-term mayor, and he set up a meeting because he had known the mayor for a long time, and he knew the mayor for a long time because of his civic involvement in a variety of different causes and organizations, and that always just left a mark on me, and something that how can I give back in that way? How can I serve the broader community? And so this was an opportunity to do that. I think also there's kind of an appeal for like the kind of lawyer who kind of does a little bit of everything, and is kind of which I think the county law director has a lot of that going for it, but without the need to find clients and make sure that you get paid and that kind of thing. So there's that too, of like the kind of a almost nostalgic feel for this is what a career path for a lawyer. So those are, I think, probably the 2 biggest things that drew me to this position.
That's good.
Let us know which one you're on.
Bouncing around.
Yeah. Mark started.
Yeah, it's back in order. Let's see, try to get back in order. Okay, in your current practice, who has been your primary researcher? This position being so multidisciplinary, how do you see that aspect of work being accomplished well? Doesn't need to reread that. I kind of bounce around with it. If your in your current practice, who has been your primary researcher? This position being so multidisciplinary, how do you see that aspect of work being accomplished well? So,
primarily it's been me. I've been the primary researcher on things. So, my very first job out of law school, I was was with a plaintiff's employment law firm, and it was about a year old when I joined it. So we had one, I think, support staff. So it was, I had to do I had to do my own research. I didn't have, I don't think we even had a paralegal. At the AG's office, we had paralegals, and they, had done a lot of background stuff already, like when I came in, and so it was like, okay, here's the kind of the base that you can draw upon, and then anything else, was more or less me. At Capital Accounts, which is my first job as an in-house attorney, I was the only lawyer, and for the first month or two, we had a paralegal, and then she left, and so in terms of people legal training, I was the only one. So in terms of like I said, research at the Beacon Center, I had a staff attorney too, and so we kind of shared the research in that. So that was nice because it was it was new. It wasn't just me. Again, assuming that I would have a staff attorney or assistant county attorney, whatever we call it here. I imagine that person would do a lot of the preliminary research. I mean, I think there's a lot to diving into. Let's say, okay, depending on a given project and the size and scope, if we're both going to do this and see what we got, or you go first and you give me what you have, then I can fill in the holes or identify holes and say, okay, we need more here, or what about do we think about this, and to the extent of other people on staff who have the kind of the background to research, a paralegal or a legal assistant or whoever, if they have that have that experience, that would be obviously very helpful as well. But there's also no substitute for digging in and doing stuff yourself. Once you get comfortable with somebody, then you can say, okay, well, I trust that person. That I know that they'll get all the research. They'll be thorough. But especially before you have that experience, there's always that well, what if they missed something? What if they didn't understand something's important that that they should have, or that I would understand is important, then they wouldn't have a reason to understand it. So I think especially early on, that I would be very hands-on, because I would need to make sure of it, and also I need to learn. There's a lot to this job that I don't know, and again, there's only one way to really learn and absorb it, and that's to dig in and do the work myself, not just read something that someone else has prepared.
I'll stay in order here. What is your opinion, or do you have an opinion, on placing a moratorium on high-density residential building permits in the county if the county is unable to afford building new schools without a tax increase?
So my default in general on should government tell somebody what to do is no. That's my default thing. Now, given a particular circumstance and situation, then it's okay, well, let's figure out the details. So I will say that I don't have a firm grasp of what's going on in Sumner County to know whether the county would need to raise taxes, or to know what extent a particular proposed development would have, and what effect it would have on schools, on public services, on roads, and that kind of thing. So my default is to say that government should not tell developers what they can and can't do. But obviously, given a certain circumstance, well, yes, if it's something where there's no capacity for, if the schools are already at capacity or close to capacity, and a new development would then require building new schools, or require significant infrastructure spending by the county, and there isn't, and the funds aren't available, and so the only recourse is to raise taxes again. Well, that's something that needs to be considered, or either in terms of saying no, or making a deal with the developer to say, okay, this is something where your development is what's putting us over the top, so that we're gonna have to have this additional spending. We need, you know, some sort of contribution from you. We need something to help offset that, because otherwise, you know, yes, because otherwise you're making a lot of money on your development, and you're also causing everybody else to have to pay into it by, you know, tax increase. I guess the other thing I'd like to want to point out is, as a law director, of course, I would work for the county, and so, you know, internally, you know, if I'm asked my opinion on the merits of a policy proposal, I can give it. But, you know, my primary job would be, you know, defending the county position. So regardless of what my personal position is. So if there's something where, you know, no, we're going to tell developers they can, you know, pass, you know, an ordinance that says no, you know, development here, or, you know, rezoning, or whatever the case may be. You know, my job is to advise you on how to do that, you know, properly, and then defend whatever is done. Or, you know, if it's, you know, I'm the one who's writing the letter, you know, writing some sort of, you know, letter telling them not to do something, or telling them to do something in a certain way, or, you know, threatening, or whatever the case may be. You know, that's my job, and my personal opinion doesn't really come down to it once the county has made its, you know, made its decision.
Okay, well, I'll take the fun one that no one likes.
How can it be fun and no one likes it?
That's the way it was worded, and it's not. Because I'm just gonna leave it open-ended, see if you can figure it out. In any instant, when it is expedient and legal to do a thing, just because you can, means the commission or the mayor comes to you and says, hey, we want to do this thing. Does it mean that you should or that you may? And we went over this. That was Deborah's question when we met with you. So, I
mean, if you can, if you may, you know, that's basically the same thing. But certainly there's a difference in can and should. You know, should involves, you know, a moral judgment, a policy judgment, you know, a prudential judgment of, okay, is this the right decision? Is this good for the county? Is this good for the taxpayer? Does it, you know, comport with our values, whether it's moral values, political values, ideological values? Is this something that we're doing, again, just because we can? If it's, you know, if we take eminent domain as an example, right? So there's plenty of, you know, law out there on the procedures of how, you know, a government body can condemn land and take it by eminent domain. But, you know, is that really the right move? You know, theoretically, they have to pay, whether the Fifth Amendment of the U.S. Constitution requires just compensation, right? Whatever that means. You know, theoretically, that should mean fair market value. Of course, if it really is fair market value, the person probably already sold it. You know, the way the fair market value is calculated is generally less than, you know, what someone would actually sell it for, maybe even less than what a private party might buy it for. And you know, so then it's looking at, okay, well, why does the county want this land that we're gonna, you know, purchase it by eminent domain or exercise eminent domain? Is it something that is truly for the public use? Is it something that is, you know, more going to be like a private benefit? You know, maybe it's, you know, is it going to benefit someone who's politically connected? Is the person whose land it is, you know, vulnerable in some way? Are they, you know, politically unpopular, or an enemy of someone who's powerful, or whatever the case is? And so there are a lot of considerations to making a decision that, you know, would indicate, well, yes, the county has the authority to do this and has the power to do this, but is it really the right thing to do? And sometimes the answer is yes, but sometimes the answer is no. And so, there's a lot of that goes into it, and I think that's the role of a lawyer that I think is not something that I fully grasped before I became a lawyer, and I think it's also not something that a lot of people who don't interact with lawyers don't necessarily realize. But a big part of advice a lawyer gives is not strictly legal. It's not is this act or decision, is it legal, or what are the legal consequences? But it's also, is this the right decision? Is this something that if you're advising a corporate client, whether it's in-house counsel or outside counsel, on a course of action, is this the right move? Is this going to make the company money? Or is this going to expose the company to these kinds of risks? Does it align with the corporate values? It's making sure that these decisions are well thought through, and sometimes bringing a perspective that may not have been raised before, that isn't strictly just this is the law. Yes you can, no you can't, but should you do this or should you not? Or if you do it, how do you do it? What's the best way to go about it?
You guys with that?
Oh, yeah, I'm finished, I'm sorry. No, I'm sorry, no.
No, that's great. I'm gonna, my next question is right, what is your opinion on the sheriff's authority to enact or ignore red flag laws passed by the state legislature?
And this is something we talked about, obviously. So I looked at the, the statutory powers and duties of a sheriff, and I don't think a lot of it just seemed to be very ministerial, of like not having much discretion as to what to do or not do. My thought on the matter in terms of if there's a validly enacted red flag law, if there's a court order that says this person needs to have their guns removed, and it's validly issued by a judge, I don't think that the sheriff or anybody that that an order is directed to can just ignore it. Now I think that a sheriff may have the ability to bring some sort of action in court to challenge it, to say to ask the judge to be relieved of enforcing it, or then it may be filing it in a different court than the order was issued in the first place, to say that, hey, this law is not constitutional, or in this particular case the procedures weren't followed correctly. But I don't think that just given a valid court order that a sheriff could just say, well, no, I'm not going to enforce this. I think that again, assuming that the court order directs the sheriff to do something.
Would you consider red flag laws constitutional?
I think that it depends on the law. So I think there probably is a way to write, a law that has the proper due process protections involved, so that assuming the court follows all of those procedures, would comport with the Second Amendment of the U.S. Constitution, to the Declaration of Rights in the Tennessee Constitution, and the due process procedures that would lay out that also come with both of those. I don't think that any red flag law would just be on its face constitutional, but I think there's a way to craft them in a way so that you don't have a situation where a family member or a neighbor or whoever just comes and, oh, well, this guy's crazy, take his guns. But in a way that the person has a chance to mount a reasonable defense, and that the judge would be able to say, okay, well, having weighed at the evidence, now I'll make this decision, and laying out these are all the considerations I've made, and given that the person had a hearing and was able to present the evidence, and now I have found that in this circumstance the person's gun should be taken away, and again, not for possibly for an indefinite period of time, but not necessarily like a permanent thing without, you know, extraordinary circumstances. Because generally speaking, you know, the circumstances that would lead to the seizure of weapons would not be something that it would be or should be a permanent thing. You know, maybe that someone is, you know, mentally ill, and, you know, given the right kind of medication and treatment, they can overcome that, and so then, okay, you know, now we don't have a problem with them owning weapons. But yeah, I think that it can be done, but I think that the circumstances will be pretty narrow.
Okay. That's good, no problem. One last easy question. With the recent COVID pandemic, do you believe that the governor acted within his powers under the state constitution to close public access to businesses he deemed non-essential?
So this was a difficult thing. I don't know. I don't have a firm opinion on this. It's not something that I have researched that thoroughly. I know that, among other things, the legislature has acted to narrow the emergency powers that it previously had granted the governor, given our experiences. And I think the bigger issue is not so much what happened before, but, you know, we as a society, and, you know, across the country, not just in Tennessee, are more prepared now if something happens again to say, okay, you know, this is too far. And like, as I mentioned before, there's, you know, plenty of case law all around the country of, you know, what was allowed, what wasn't allowed. But if, you know, we have some other kind of health emergency, whether it's something similar to COVID or something that, you know, it's Ebola, or it's, you know, something that we haven't even, you know, considered, measles, whatever, that we can take, we'll be more aware of the steps that can be taken or shouldn't be taken. And I think people will be quicker to act legally as well. And so if it comes down to, okay, you know, the governor, whether it's Governor Lee or it's, you know, his successor or, you know, whoever, you know, wants to enact some sort of shutdown of you know, businesses or different things of that nature. If it's something where I'm in this position, and as, you know, the county says, well, you know, we need to oppose this, right? As I mentioned before, the governor's acts can, you know, preempt you know, what the county wants to do, and, you know, the governor shuts things down, and we say, well, no, and, you know, we as the elected, you know, government in Sumner County don't agree with this, and we want to, you know, take the governor to court. Well, again, you know, that's my job, and there's a lot out there, you know, as guidance and as samples to be able to figure out, okay, what is the right argument to make, or what are the right arguments to make, and how do we do that? And I think that people will be quicker to do that, and will be more will be able to do it more effectively should something like that ever happen again. And obviously, yeah, we hope it doesn't. But in the event that it happens, I think that we'll be quicker on what to do and how to handle it. I think a lot of that, the first time, is that novelty and just the complete unknown of, you know, we haven't faced a situation like this in, you know, 100 years since the Spanish flu, and you know, what can we do? And I think that there's just a lot more of readiness and things that we can do to stop overreach, whether it's, you know, a disagreement on a constitutional level or more on a policy level.
Yeah, well, that's all of our questions, and we're out of time. So thanks. That was perfect.
Good time.
Jason, we appreciate you.
Yeah.